Who are a few of the dumbest criminals around? Let's find out. Starting with number 6, no immunity. Singer/performer and apparent Lethal Weapon fan, Cecilia Selina Mercado was dragged out of her vehicle and arrested after she claimed she had diplomatic immunity and was an ambassador at large. As it turns out, Mercado wasn't an ambassador at large or otherwise, and didn't have immunity. No one really knows why Mercado continues to say she is. She probably doesn't want to be bothered by things such as legitimate titles, you know? The incident happened when Mercado, who performs under the stage name Ceci, and who has a sizable following on Instagram, was pulled over by New York City cops for a traffic violation. The cops asked her to step out of the vehicle, and instead of just getting out of the car like a normal person, she decided to throw a huge fit and refused. When asked why she refused, she said that she had diplomatic plates that granted her immunity and that she was an ambassador at large. A passenger in her car also claimed that the police arresting her didn't have jurisdiction because she wasn't a U.S. citizen, which, even if true, isn't how the laws work at all. So the police obviously didn't pay any attention to that nonsense. They dragged Ceci out of the car and arrested her while her passenger was screaming at them. And we all know how passengers screaming at the police de-escalates the situation. Mercado told the officers that she would soon get all of them fired and that they would have to pay her $250,000 for trampling on her diplomatic rights. When Ceci got to the police station, the authorities discovered two very surprising things. The first was that Ceci was actually an American national and was born in the Bronx, and the second was that her plates, which she claimed were diplomatic passes for traffic violations, were actually counterfeit. They weren't even good counterfeits either. According to one official at the State Department, diplomatic plates usually have several letters after their numbers, and Ceci's tag didn't have those. It was apparently pretty obvious if you do even a cursory search. But that would require something other than rocks to be used in place of her actual brain. You may think, well, that's it. Mercado got busted and the game is over. But you would be wrong, because her boyfriend had to continue. After Ceci was arrested on charges of having a counterfeit registration, license plate, or sticker on a motor vehicle, she was released on a $2,500 bail. So her boyfriend, this Colombian dude named Andre Lopez Escobar, came to pick her up from jail in a Mercedes Maybach. But the Maybach was pulled over that evening again by cops. And the reason? The tags on the Maybach were also counterfeit. Andres refused to step out of the vehicle, and the police had to break the windows to get him. So he was forcefully removed, and the vehicle was impounded. When Ceci got home, she posted that the cops were treating her unfairly despite being a good community girl, and her boyfriend also had some opinions. According to Andres, the laws that required you to have proper tags weren't real laws, obviously. And the only laws that apply to him are natural and common law. As of the release of this video, the case is ongoing. The fact that Andres went to pick up his girlfriend after she got busted for fake plates with his own set of fake plates really shows us the level of intelligence they're working with. Number 5. Run by slapping. Weird guy Edgar Estrada Espana probably thought that a run-by butt slapping was something he could easily get away with because he was on an e-bike. But as it turned out, he was wrong. One afternoon, Edgar was on his bike and spied a woman running and decided she was the right sort of victim for his hands. He smacked her on the backside and gave her a wry smile as he sped away on his bike. He must have thought that it was his lucky day and he could simply get away with it. Apparently, Espana's smile wasn't going to let him off the hook, because what he did really got his victim going. She started chasing him through the city on foot, but since Edgar was on his e-bike, he was much faster, until his victim stopped someone in a car and asked for help. So they chased Edgar for about a mile before finally catching up to him. And when they did, she had her vengeance. The woman put him in a chokehold and brought him to his knees and then held him until the police came. Edgar was eventually arrested and charged. Maybe next time he'll think twice before getting any stupid ideas. Good for this lady, because most of the time, chasing down some dude over something like this can easily turn dangerous. But she clearly could handle herself, and she got some justice. Number 4. Arresting on easy mode. David Ratliff learned that there is such a thing as too much of a good time when he pulled out a bag of banned substances and a wad of cash when a police officer just asked for his ID. Ratliff was passed out behind the wheel of his car in a parking lot of a video store, or what we like to call analog Netflix, when he was rudely woken up by the police. The officer asked for his ID, and instead of just handing it over, Ratliff did probably the funniest thing ever. He whipped out a bag that contained all the evidence the police could ever need to put him away for some time. The poor guy was probably so out of it that he thought that the large wad of cash and illegal substances in his bag was enough of an ID for the police. In any case, the police promptly arrested him on the spot. What would you say the chances of Ratliff being convicted are? Maybe it's so dumb it's actually smart, because he knows he couldn't get away, so he saved time by just immediately caving to authority? Number 3. Priestly reputations. Francesco Spagnesi, a Catholic priest, was arrested for stealing thousands of pounds from his parish account to fund his illegal substance-fueled rainbow cheek parties, if you know what we mean. Father Spagnesi, who was made a parish priest in 2009, has HIV and still participated in these parties without letting any of his many partners know. But that isn't even the worst thing Father Spagnesi did. These intimate glitter galas were very expensive, and illegal substances continue to be illegal. So to finance these parties, Spagnesi dug his hands into the church coffers and stole 85,000 pounds. A parish accountant immediately noticed the large withdrawal Spagnesi had made and limited his access to the church's account. But that was never going to stop Father Spagnesi, who was determined to continue his spicy substance raves, so he decided to go a different route, which meant collecting money from parishioners directly. So Father Spagnesi collected money under the guise of making collections for the poor, but his poor parishioners didn't know that they were simply funding their father's getting down low while high habit. Sometimes our rainbow priest just took directly from the collection plate, and other times he got individual parishioners to donate as high as 1,280 pounds to fund his parties. These parties that Father Spagnesi funded were no small matter either, and sometimes they had up to 30 participants. The incredible thing is that Father Spagnesi's roommate was all in on it, and both of them were usually prowling special interest sites to find participants for their parties. Spagnesi was eventually caught when his roommate imported an illegal substance from the Netherlands. This led to a raid on their apartment where the police discovered more items used for illegal substances. This was as good an indication as any of the sort of nonsense that Spagnesi and his roommate got up to. The parishioners eventually found out about all of this when Spagnesi and his roommate were arrested and have now instituted legal action to get their money back. The only problem is Spagnesi probably doesn't even have any more to give back at this point. You'd think that he'd chill out after getting locked out of the church account though, right? What was the plan here? They notice he's stealing, so they're going to be watching him, and he steals more? What a dope. This guy was always going to get caught. Number 2. Full restitution. Sarah Ann Mock Butler stole over $341,000 during a 5-year stint as finance director for her church. Her fraud was so extensive and so obvious that when the police eventually found the records, she was slammed with over 900 charges, with over 500 of them dealing with money laundering. Sarah was hired as a finance director of Pikes Peak Christian Church in 2017 and was let go in 2012. Those 5 years were probably the happiest times of Sarah's life, because she was basically swimming in cash. But nothing lasts forever, and after she was let go, the church hired another finance director who immediately discovered what Sarah was doing. In fact, after his first month in the position, he spoke to the head pastor and let him know that Sarah's financial statements didn't match the cash the church currently had. This cash crunch led to the church drastically downsizing in terms of employees and even closing down some charity initiatives. Maybe she should just have done a bit of work to clean the records, but it's hard to imagine even that would have saved her. Stupid and lazy aren't exactly a successful combination. Anyway, the church was never going to let Sarah get away with it. Well, they kind of did, but not really. But kind of. They got the police involved, and the very first day she was interviewed, she confessed to everything. It was determined that she had stolen about $341,000 in total, and she was looking at a very long term in prison. However, the church forgave her, which led to a massively reduced punishment. First, she had to pay $225,000 in restitution to the church, and the court also gave her a 4-year deferred sentence and 100 hours of community service. In the end, Sarah was really lucky that the church forgave her, and she somehow had enough money to pay her restitution. Why wasn't it for the full amount she spent? But really, that's probably the most surprising part of it all. She actually had enough money to cover even just part of the total she stole. Did she actually invest that money wisely? She could have easily been in prison for a few years if she wasn't able to pay some of that money back. After getting hit with nearly 900 charges, it's pretty obvious that she didn't even try to cover her fraud here. If you're enjoying this video, be sure to stay tuned right here to find out just how she actually made her money. Number 1. A shoplifting hobby. New Zealand Member of Parliament Galriz Garaman resigned after getting caught shoplifting over $9,000 worth of merchandise from a bunch of high-end stores. Shoplifting from one store as a Member of Parliament can maybe, just maybe, be played off as a mistake. It would be understandable since we've all had at least one time where we accidentally walked out of a store without paying for something, right? Okay, well, we can at least say it's an accident if it happened once, you know? But when there are multiple accusations with CCTV evidence? Well, that's a pattern, and that leads to some resignations. Galritz, who once made the news as the first refugee Member of Parliament, was caught on camera stealing items of clothing worth thousands of dollars from different high-end stores in Auckland and Wellington. While the stores refrained from making any statements, the police swung into action and immediately found evidence that allowed them to charge Galritz. Galritz did the honorable thing before having her day in court and resigned. In the statement accompanying her resignation, Galritz took responsibility for her actions, but said that she only shoplifted because of some mental health issues. She basically said she had been suffering from mental health issues related to her stressful work as a Member of Parliament and ironically from her work as her party's justice spokesperson. It's almost as if she had no other choice but to steal, right? After Galritz's resignation, the leaders of her party held a press conference and told the country to remember that Members of Parliament are still humans. Well, some of them may be hobbits, but still, good-natured people that can make mistakes. Which makes a lot of sense. Who among us hasn't mistakenly stole over $9,000 worth of designer items from different stores over several months and also gotten caught from lots of surveillance footage? That's like practically everyone, right? Right? Were these people just natural-born scammers? Let's get right to it and start with number 5, the Brazilian DoorDash. A woman from Brazil took her business to a whole other level when she became a star provider of illegal substances. Using small motorcycles and elaborate WhatsApp groups, Sue Ellen Miguez would do her business all around the UK. Miguez would live out of 3 different short-rent Airbnbs for a few days so police wouldn't catch her, with her longtime boyfriend who would execute the operation. The couple was considered by many to be a modern Bonnie and Clyde, except they're roughly 50% scummier. The couple had created a custom phone service with multiple moped drivers who would deliver the goods, who were dubbed the Asphalt Angels for some reason. The business menu included a wide array of illegal substances, from nose beers to various types of pills. The delivery men would disguise themselves as DHL drivers and make sure to deliver the goods within 10 minutes. Their lucrative business allowed them to have a grand lifestyle that included spending thousands of dollars in designer fashions. The couple spent close to $60,000 in brands like Prada and Louis Vuitton. Part of their lavish lifestyle was spent in a $13,000 a month mansion located in Surrey, a few miles south of London. The 7-bedroom estate boasted a private gym, swimming pool, spa facilities, and their own security for privacy. Added to this, they had a central London apartment with views of the River Thames. They would drive around in their orange Lamborghini and do shopping sprees in Harrods, an ultra-exclusive department store in the British capital. Everything seemed to be working smoothly, until one day police caught one of their delivery drivers in the middle of a regular day of work. After receiving an intelligence report detailing a local phone line, police were able to make an arrest. Police were able to withdraw more than $3 million worth of illegal substances, several cell phones, and more than $2.5 million evidence of illegal transactions. The operation also uncovered multiple packages of other illegal substances, including some of the largest amounts ever found in the UK that were stored away in storage lockers in 4 different locations across London. In a local hotel, they had a number of fake IDs and around $50,000 in cash. Miguez and her partner Diego de Souza ran their business operation as one of the most organized schemes there has ever been. They handed out a 10-page manual in which they meticulously detailed a code of conduct for all collaborators and payment increases based on their performance. As any large company, they expected to be number one among their rivals, with the obligation of making deliveries exactly within 10 minutes of any request, just as it was written in their business manual. Delivery drivers were requested to be polite at all times and have adequate posture. Miguez would oversee all operations, while all other workers would rent out the spaces where they stored the contraband, and others would organize the drivers. The operation was able to become highly successful because of the smart use of technology and the organized level in which they operated. Attention to detail was a must. After a detailed investigation and judging process by British authorities, the couple was sentenced to spend 13 years in prison each. Maybe they can pivot to just DoorDash. Number 4. Nailed it. Famous South African reality TV star Mel Viljoen and her husband Pete were under fire for the way they managed their business license. The couple, owners of Tammy Taylor Nails' South African branch, have been accused of mislabeling their products as made in the USA when in fact they aren't. According to an episode of the South African television investigation show Carte Blanche, the natives of the city of Pretoria lost the license to represent the Tammy Taylor brand in the country, but didn't stop selling the products. And an in-depth investigation noted how the products were labeled by a local South African printing company. It was safe to assume their products were fake. As if that weren't enough, this wasn't the first time the company had been the focus of the investigation show. Tammy Taylor, being one of the most famous nail polish brands in the international market, rescinded their trademark rights from the company owned by Mel and Pete Viljoen. But this was just the tip of the iceberg. Twitter, as usual, wasn't having it. Twitter's moody. Multiple users went on the social media platform to denounce the couple. Most of them stated how they care about their company being investigated and them being a part of the Real Housewives franchise at the same time. Other users stated they were scammers and pretty much criminals. The TV show had a series of interviews that included former business associates and buyers that had dealt with the Viljoens' shady business ways face to face. One of them had reportedly bought one of the Tammy Taylor stores they managed in Menlyn, a shopping center in Pretoria. The woman stated it was pretty clear the financial situation of the company was strange. The unnamed woman said that Tammy Taylor head offices never handed her access to their bank account where all the money was going to be deposited. So, for 6 weeks, every single earning the store had was never in her reach. But by contract, she was expected to pay all the expenses herself from the date the contract stipulated. Added to this, because of contract dates, the Viljoens handed her a demand for almost $28,000 for rent for the months of delay. The Viljoens weren't going to stay quiet. An online media outlet interviewed them, and Pete had a lot to say. They were allegedly going to sue Carte Blanche for a sum close to $110,000 for defamation of character. However, some leaked voicemails from Pete state how their business scam worked. They would hand their potential client agreements, which included a no refund clause they themselves said was for dumb people. Number 3. The fake concert. 2 women were said to organize a benefit concert for Sandy Hook Promise, a charity founded by family members of the 2012 shooting. Nancy Jean and Carissa Scott presented themselves as booking agents for an event that would feature stars like Bruno Mars and Justin Timberlake. For the show, which was slated to happen in San Antonio, Texas, the women had already managed to score a couple of investors. They told the investors that in order to book both Timberlake and Mars, they would need a combined $1.4 million. As in addition, they would be able to get artists like Lady Gaga, Usher, and Drake. A few weeks later, they received $100,000 from an investor aiming to secure Timberlake's presence in the event. After a while, the investor was worried he hadn't heard anything from Timberlake on social media. He then received a call from a person pretending to be Timberlake's manager, saying the singer was booked to the gig, but he was now requesting a $200,000 increase on his fees. As it turns out, the 2 women never even contacted Timberlake or his team. Instead, they did what anyone would do when raising charity funds for the victims of one of the worst shootings ever. they decided to go on an all-inclusive shopping spree that included Saks Fifth Avenue, almost $9,000 in cash withdrawal, and a brand new Mercedes-Benz. Given the scope of the scam, the FBI was able to catch them in the midst of it. An agent, posing as a possible investor from New York, was approached by the women and pressured to put in a full deposit, citing that both Timberlake and Mars were worried the public were seeing this charity concert as some sort of joke. Is people thinking charity concerts are a joke a thing? They actually tried to float that. Soon after, both women were arrested at JFK Airport and charged with wire fraud. Authorities commented how sad it was that these women viewed a charity that was created to support the families of victims of a horrific event as a way to increase their pocket money. And although the women were bailed for $75,000, chances are they'll spend some time in jail pending their trial. Sweaty Alex Jones was probably really hoping these two would take some of the heat off of him. Number 2. Prison Boss. While in jail, a man in Nigeria saw an opportunity, and he made a lot of money with it. Hope Olusegun Arok, who was serving a 24-year sentence at a maximum security prison in the African country, was able to create an elaborate scheme that included multiple collaborators and earned him a whopping $1 million. Arok was also able to evade Nigerian authorities when he was ill with an undisclosed condition and taken to a hospital. Arok escaped and went back to living his regular life. He moved to different hotels, saw his wife and kids, and even attended social events. Arok seemingly had always had access to resources that weren't usually granted to inmates: internet and phones. With this, he created a complex internet scam system that saw no boundaries and scammed people across continents. Using a fake identity, he opened 2 separate bank accounts and, while in prison, bought a Lexus. Added to this, he had access to his wife's bank account PIN code, so he was able to freely transfer funds all over the place. Arok was originally convicted in 2012 for internet fraud after he spent some time as a student in Malaysia. Arok would tell his victims he was a computer science student at a university in Kuala Lumpur, but was in fact the head of a web of fraudsters who worked primarily online. He was sentenced to serve 12 years after being charged for wire fraud, check cloning, and forgery. Nigerian investigators were hesitant at first to disclose whether or not there were any involvement with prison authorities, but as expected, there was. At least 3 officials from Kirikiri prison, where Arok was serving time, were arrested for a direct involvement in helping him run his in-house scam. They were linked with having helped him escape prison and roam around the city freely while still technically serving time. Arok had allegedly received a referral letter from the man in charge of the prison's medical facility to go to a hospital and then escape. Number 1. Africa's #1 car dealer. Adesua Renee Ogiozi became a prominent businesswoman when she opened her own car dealership. The Nigerian native said her business came to be due to an unforeseen situation. Her cars were stolen while she was living in Dallas, Texas. The vehicle was later found, but the situation pushed her to establish her own company, Adesua Motors International. According to her, the company has become the #1 car broker in all of Africa. Through her business endeavors, Adesua has obtained multiple awards, including the Nigerian Women Achievers Award, Business Entrepreneur of the Year 2018, Heritage Award Business Executive of the Year 2019, and many more. Her company has reportedly sold over 3,000 cars throughout Africa, with many celebrities and famous musicians being some of her top clients. But Adesua's success came with a price. After an investigation, the FBI charged Adesua for a fraud where the auto dealer allegedly stole millions of dollars. Added to this, she was charged for an alleged romance scam for the value of $560,000. She was first accused of conspiracy to commit fraud in 2020. In tandem with her business partner, Olateyu Ogunleya, a businessman from Atlanta, Adesua reportedly withheld $560,000 from a female client based in New York. According to FBI statements, Adesua had moved around $3 million in her American bank accounts. There was no clear indication to where the money was coming from. The investigation also showed that she had made over 1,000 false tax claims to the IRS. At first, investigators thought her fraud attempts were limited to a romance scam for only $12,000. But upon further research, they discovered Adesua's financial crimes were far deeper than they had initially thought. After her arrest warrant was issued, it took authorities a full year to locate and arrest Adesua, to which she simply stated she couldn't understand why it took so long for them to catch her. While Adesua was released on a $25,000 bond, her bank accounts were frozen pending the fraud's investigations. Her U.S. passport was withdrawn and her daily movements were were limited to 3 hours a day. This added to the fact that her tax information was looked under close inspection, with the FBI discovering that in 2016, Adesua had declared her company's earnings to be only $872,000, with $862,000 being expenses alone. In 2019, her personal income was reported to be only $120,000, all of it being business expenses. Her public lavish lifestyle on social media didn't help either, where she had become a notorious Instagram star that flaunted her luxurious possessions and being the #1 auto dealer in Africa. While she is still being prosecuted, Adesua faces up to 20 years in prison for wire fraud and conspiracy to commit wire fraud. She's probably got some good sales going on now, though. Click to watch one of these next videos. Let us know in the comment section what you'd rather have: free Shake Shack for life or free Five Guys for life.